Okay, okay. So, evolve after a few months. Hope you are all absolutely fine, healthy, and happy in these testing times. So, be careful. Take care of yourselves and your family members and near and dear ones. Do strictly maintain all sorts of COVID protocols. So, that is our earnest request to all of you. Let us fight this disaster together. I'm supposed to read two essays with you in our Tagore studies paper. The two essays, one is Morning Songs. One of the essays is called Morning Songs, and the other is called Music and Feeling. Okay, both these are originally Bangla essays, and subsequently they have been translated by various people into English. We will start with the first one, Morning Songs, today. Now, this has nothing to do with songs as such, but the second essay, Music and Feeling, will talk about music in particular. But this particular essay, the first one that we will take up today, Morning Songs, has nothing to do with music per se, nothing to do with songs as such. Still, it is called Morning Songs. this is this is not a separate, isolated, or independent essay. This essay is a part of one of Tagore's autobiographical books, Jiban Smriti, or Memories of My Life, which was written at the age of 49 or 50, around that time. So this essay is an excerpt, that's Morning Songs, is a small excerpt from this book, which is written in Bangla, originally written in Bangla, and it was later on translated into English. In this essay, the author Tagore talks about two experiences uh, during his early youth, when he was, say, of 17 to 20 years of age. So he had two small experiences, small but very significant experiences, which he recounts in this essay. In order to understand the full significance of Tagore's understanding of these two experiences, we need to remember that Tagore was born into a Brahmo family and brought up in an atmosphere of Brahmo philosophy. He was, from his very childhood, inspired by the teachings of the Upanishads. Okay, but of course, the time around which these two experiences, the time around which he gathered these two experiences, at around that point of time, that is when he was 17, 18, 19 year old, he did not read the Upanishads directly, but the teachings of the Upanishads, the wisdoms of the Upanishads, came to him filtered through his family atmosphere, his father, his elder brothers, and many other great Brahmo leaders around that point of time who were associated with his family. Because remember that his family was the first Brahmo family in the entire Indian culture. His father was one of the greatest friends, disciples, and associates of the founder of the Brahmo religion, that is Ram Mohan Rai. So, throughout his entire life, Tagore's father, Mahorshi Debendranath Tagore, devoted his he was always throughout his entire life he was devoted to the teachings of the Upanishads, and so was Tagore per se. So certain Upanishadic ideas, deeply Upanishadic quasi religious, philosophical, and aesthetic ideas are prominent in Tagore's this particular essay. How, we will briefly talk about later on. But before that, let us recount the two experiences which Tagore had around his early youth. This begins like this. One day late in the afternoon, I was pacing the terrace of our Jorashaku house. The afterglow of the sunset combined with the wan twilight in a way which seemed to give the approaching evening especially wonderful attractiveness for me. So this is the experience that he had at his Jorashanko house, and this is the experience of a twilight, a sunset. A couple of paragraphs later, he talked about another experience which he had at another place, the end of Shadar Street, and the trees on the free school grounds opposite were visible from our Shadar Street house. One morning, I happened to be standing on the veranda looking that way. So, the first experience that Tagore recounts in this small essay is one that he had at his Jorashanko house, and that was the experience of a sunset. The second experience that he talks about is one that he had at his Southern Street house, at their Southern Street house, and that was the experience of a early morning. So the time and place of these two experiences are different. Jorashanko evening or twilight, and Southern Street morning. But the experiences are more or less similar. What were the experiences? The afterglow of the sunset combined in the first experience, the afterglow of the sunset combined with the wan twilight in a way which seemed to give the approaching evening a specially wonderful attractiveness for me. So evenings are excuse me. You have to bear with my kind of very irritable voice. I have been suffering from terrible cough for the last few days. So please bear with me for the next half an hour or so. So yes, uh, evenings are ordinary experiences. Okay, every day we experience an evening. Every day we experience sunset or twilight. Just as every day, as a part of our natural experiences, we experience sunrise. But this ordinary thing could turn into extraordinary experiences if one looked at these things from a special perspective, with a special vision. So the ordinary in such a circumstance can become extraordinary. The everyday can become special. So things things become ordinary, things become extraordinary, things become everyday, things become special, not because of themselves, but because of the way or ways we look at them. Okay, so it is our ways of seeing, our approach, our attitude, our style of thought, the way we look at a thing, which makes that thing ordinary or extraordinary, special or or mundane. Okay, so evenings can be mundane. The same evenings can be extraordinary or sublime if you look at it that way. So everything depends on your subjective vision. So this is one important significance or one important lesson that we can derive from these experiences. So what happened in that particular evening? Even the walls of the adjoining house seemed to grow beautiful. So everything seemed so especially beautiful. Okay, everything was kind of bathed in a beautiful glow. The entire existence, the entire universe assumed a special aesthetic as well as philosophical significance for the poet. Okay, in that particular twilight, in that particular evening. Is this uplifting of the cover of triviality from the everyday world, I wondered, due to some magic in the evening light? Never. So there was some uplifting of the cover of triviality from the everyday world. So everyday world, which is apparently so very trivial, so very ordinary, okay, so very mundane. So that everyday experience, everyday world lost its mundaneness, lost its triviality, lost its ordinariness, and came across to the poet as something truly beautiful, something truly special, something truly extraordinary or sublime in that evening. So that is what he calls uplifting of the cover of triviality. But why this uplifting of the cover of triviality? Was that evening something new? Was it any different from the evening on the previous day or the evening on the next day? No, certainly not. So this extraordinariness of the evening, or this uplifting of the cover of triviality from the world as the poet experienced in that evening has nothing to do with natural phenomena. It's just that his way of looking at the world, his attitude to the world, the phenomenal universe changed at that particular point of time. So it is he who changed, not nature. So nature remained the same. The evening remained the same. There was nothing new in that evening, but it is he who changed. It is his way of looking at things which changed. Okay, so it is the subject which changed. It is the experiencer which changed, not the experience in itself. So that is the point. So knowledge is about two things: the knower and the knowable. Okay. So a human being is a knower. We know the things. So we are the subjects of knowledge production. And we know things about many things. For example, we are reading this essay right now. So this is the knowable object about which we are talking, which we are discussing, which will be debating on, etc. Likewise, we human beings try to extract knowledge from many things in the world. So they are all objects of knowledge production. So human beings, the knowers, are subjects of knowledge production, while things which the human beings know, or from which human beings know, are the knowable objects or objects of knowledge production. In this particular case, there was no change in the object of knowledge production. There was a particular change in the subject of knowledge production. So the poet's own ways of looking at things, his own ways of interacting with the worldly phenomena, natural phenomena, that is what changed. The evening remained the same. So what was that change? What was that change that he never experienced earlier in his life? What special change that he found or experienced or discovered in his own personality? So I could see at once. So this is the change that he experienced in his own personality. So the sky was the same, the sun was the same, the sun's crimson rays in the twilight was the same. The walls, the cityscape, because this is Jorashakot, Kolkata, the cityscape, the streets, the houses, they were the same. The objects remain the same, but the same objects assumed a new vision because the knower himself changed from inside. What was that change in the personality of the knower himself? I could see at once that it was the effect of the evening which had come within me. Effect of the evening which had come within me. So the real change has taken place within me, not outside me, in the world of the knowable, in the world of the phenomenal universe. The real change has taken place within me. What is that change? Its shades, that is the shades of my personality, its shades had obliterated myself. Obliterated myself. So that is the please excuse me. That is the most important change that took place in his personality. Obliteration of the self. Obliteration of the self. Here the self means one's ego, aham, ego. All human beings are egoistic human beings. We all have our own ego. Okay? So when we look at things, when we interact with people and things, the world that surrounds us, trees, animals, the natural phenomena, our near and dear ones, people around us, the society. So whenever we look at things, whenever we interact with things and people, whenever we establish or try to establish any kind of communication with anything or person around us, we do not do all these things in a kind of selfless manner. So at the center of all these experiences is our ego. So I, me, remains supreme in relationship with these others. So when I interact with a tree, for example, when I interact with an animal, for example, when I interact with a human being, another human being, for example, So it is always a kind of hierarchical relationship. So my ego, I am the supreme person. Everything else is an object. I am the subject, everything else is object. So there is a hierarchy where I belong to a kind of higher pedestal and everything else belongs to the lower pedestal. So our ego continuously engulfs us. Okay, in our everyday life, in all our interaction, in all our thoughts, our self is the center of our universe. So we are all self-centric people. That is the idea. We are all self-centric or self-centered people. Okay, we cannot come out of the confines, the constraints of our own self, own petty ego, own very little and belittling ego in our interactions with the outside world. It is precisely because of that inability in our own mind and spirit. It is precisely because of our inability to transcend our own petty individual ego that things around us seem to be so ordinary. Once we can overcome that ego, there's this song written, composed by, a poem actually, composed by Tagore in Bangla, where it says, Apon hote bahir hoye baire dara. Please try and come out of your own self. Okay, so it is only then when you are humble enough to acknowledge that you are not important, the world is. Okay, so when you can interact with an insect, a tree leaf, a flower, a grain of sand, the world around you, a human being, an animal, with the humility that you are the smaller entity, the less important entity in this interaction, and the person or thing that you are interacting with is the more important interlocutor in this interaction. It is only then that you will be able to realize the full significance of that quote unquote knowable, the interlocutor. So this humility, this obliteration of one's own self, this effacement of our own self, okay, this wiping out of our self-centeredness, and thereby trying to kind of extend respect to the object of interaction. This respect is very important. Be humble, efface your own ego in your interaction, be respectful to the things, animals, human beings, anything, natural phenomena, cosmic beings, universal experiences that you are interacting with. Once we can do that, once we can come out of our own selves, once we can efface our ego, then we will find that our whole ways of looking at things have changed and things around us will reach us with a new light, okay, with a new kind of experience, okay, in a new, with the things will appear to us in a kind of new significance. So that the cover of triviality, the cover of ordinariness will be lifted. The veil of ordinariness, the veil of mundaneness or everydayness will be lifted from everything of the world. Because things will remain the same, but I will change myself from within. Okay, so my ego will kind of stop trivializing everything. My ego will stop looking at everything as mere knowable objects. I will treat everything with respect. So everything will come to me with a special significance of their own. So that is the real change that the poet experienced in his self around that time. So this is the teaching of the Upanishads. This is what the Upanishad teaches us. Humility, effacement of your own ego. Amar ami, my selfhood, amittu, okay, my ego, petty ego. I must learn to. Now, this is not easily done. This is very far easier said than done. So this is a process of long sadhana. We must go through this sadhana, and if we can reach the end of this sadhana, if we can kind of achieve that siddhi, then probably we will be able to achieve bodhi as the great Buddha, Bodhisattva, okay, Gautama Buddha was able to do. And it is only then probably that we will be able to overcome our own petty ego and we'll be able to treat everything and everybody in the world with respect. So it is only then that everything in the world will seem so very beautiful, friendly, so very aesthetically charged, and so on and so forth. That is precisely the spirit of Tagore's spring song, Ore Grihobashi Kholdar Khol Lag Birojipur. So, Kholdar Khol. Open the gates of yourself, open the gates of your heart. Okay. As long as you are confined within your own ego, own small petty selfhood, the doors and windows of your mind and spirit are closed. It is only then, it is only when you will be able to open your heart, it is only when you will be open to, you will be able to open the doors and windows of yourself, your heart, that nature will truly enter your body, mind, soul, and spirit. It is only then that you will be able to appreciate spring or welcome spring, okay, not only to your mind but also to your soul, your heart, your entire being. It is only then your interaction with nature or the external universe will be complete. It is only then that our celebration of the spring festival will be successful. Otherwise it will remain outside our body, mind, spirit, and entire being. Our celebration of the spring festival will remain incomplete. That's why he gives a clarion call to people saying, Khol dar khol, open your hearts. So it's not merely opening the doors of your houses, the physical houses. That is not that important. What is much more important is opening the doors of your body, mind, soul, and heart. That is sacrificing your ego. Okay. So, and it is only then when you can kind of treat nature respectfully. Okay. Looking at yourself as a kind of mere, small, negligible onlooker, it is only then that your interaction with nature will be complete. It is only then that you will realize that this nature is not only nature, this is the gateway to achieving divine realization too. So nature will be suffused with the spirit of God. Okay, so this is a kind of a philosophical position, an aesthetic position. Aesthetic because in such a kind of scenario, you will find nature glowing with a new beauty. So it is an aesthetic philosophy. At the same point of time, it's a spiritual philosophy too. Okay, because when you can sacrifice your own ego, you will experience the presence of God, beauty, truth, a new light, a glowing light in everything and everybody in this universe. So your vision will change. You will start looking at the world from a new perspective, with a new vision. Okay, so you will change and the world will change in turn for you. So that is besides the experience that the poet had in that evening at Dorashanko house. So that is why he says, I could see at once that it was the effect of the evening which had come within me. Its shades had obliterated myself. While the self was rampant during the glare of day, everything I perceived was mingled with and hidden by it. So myself imposed itself upon everything during daytime. Okay, so I was blind then. I was looking myself in everything then. Okay, when I was so very confined within my own ego, when I was proud, when I was a mere egotistic human being. But then, now that the self was put into the background, so myself, my ego receded to the background. I understood that I am nothing. I'm just a petty object. Okay, I'm just as ordinary as a grain of sand in this huge cosmos, huge universe. Okay, a small leaf, a small insect, a small earthworm is suffused with the same light spirit, the same life force that runs through my veins, that runs in my blood. So I am in no way superior to all these various other so-called inferior life forms. So once the poet realized that, once we can realize that, things will completely change their appearance. That is precisely what happened to him. Now that the self was put into the background, I could see the world in its own true aspect. And it is that vision, the new vision acquired after this obliteration of self or effacement of the ego, that is the true vision of the world. The world that we see through our eyes of flesh and blood in our everyday life, that is an appearance. Okay, this that is an appearance, but there is the true reality. The true reality of the world lies behind that appearance. We need to penetrate the veil of that appearance in order to get a truer vision, real vision of what reality is, what life is, what nature is, what universe is. So that means that the world that we deal with in our everyday life is only the apparent world, masked world, because we don't have the vision to experience the real world behind this mask, behind this appearance. In order to get hold of that real world, in order to get a glimpse of or a taste of or the music of that real world behind the veil of appearance, all we need to do is to sacrifice our ego. We need to kind of put ourselves behind everything rather than kind of force ourselves into everything. So that is precisely what Plato, the Western classical philosopher Plato, also told us, that what we see is appearance. Okay, the real reality is inside, which is a matter of meditation, which is a matter of thinking. So by means of meditation and thinking, Plato precisely meant what the Upanishads meant in the Indian tradition thousands of years back, that the real thing is effacement of our own individual ego. So, since this experience, I repeatedly tried the effect of deliberately suppressing myself and viewing the world as a mere spectator. So, withdrawing oneself, deliberately suppressing one's own self, that I am not important, I am nothing. Okay, if anything, I am the real obstruction between my larger self and the world around me. So, there are two selves here. Okay, one smaller self and the bigger self, choto ami and boro ami. Now that bigger self, okay, and the world must be allowed to interact with each other. But the problem is our small self, our smaller self, the petty ego acts as a kind of huge impenetrable wall, a kind of obstruction between the world, the real world, and my bigger self within me. Okay, so we need to kind of break down that wall. We need to overcome our petty ego, and we need to kind of discover the real us inside ourselves, the real me inside ourselves, which is the divine me, the godly me, the real me. Okay, so I have two me's, two selves within myself. Okay, a self which is suffused with divine presence, because if God is everywhere, God is within me too. I am also an expression of God, a manifestation of God, an incarnation of God. But the problem is that larger me, that nobler me, that bigger me is almost always dominated by that small, egotistic, self-centric me in my own personality. So I need to kind of break down that wall of obstruction of that small me. Okay, that acts as a kind of hindrance in a kind of smooth, respectful, beautiful, okay, and joyful interaction between my real self, my bigger self, and the world around me. So I tried also to explain to a relative how to see the world in its true light, and the incidental lightening of one's own sense of burden which follows such vision. So once we can do that, we will find that we will feel much lighter, we will feel much freer, okay, because we will get rid of many petty considerations of our everyday life. So অহংকে যদি জয় করা যায়, if we can overcome our ahong, our petty ego, okay, our petty self-centrism, life would be far lighter, far happier, far more joyous, far more beautiful, and we will get rid of a whole lot of unhappinesses, whole lot of sufferings, whole lot of pains in our everyday life. Because let us remember that all these sufferings, these unhappinesses, these pains are caused by my own ego rather than by some external agents. So the moral of the story is the real source of joy and suffering, the real source of beauty and ugliness, the real source of truth and falsehood, okay, is within me. Is within me. Things are not really outside. The real source of the real fountainhead of all these things, apparently contradictory, are within me. If we are controlled by that petty self, my small ego, my small self, I will suffer, I will experience all sorts of pains. But if I can bring myself to the situation when I'll be controlled by my bigger self, my godly self, my divine self, then everything in life, even apparently kind of negative experiences, will give me nothing but joy and happiness. So this is the first experience. The second one, the same kind of thing. Then I gained a further insight, which has lasted all my life. The end of Southern Street, so the different local, a different place. The first in Jorashagu, the time is evening. The second, the end of the Southern Street house, and the experience is that of one morning. One morning, I happened to be standing on the veranda looking that way. The sun was just rising through the leafy tops of those trees. As I continued to gaze, all of a sudden, a covering seemed to fall away from my eyes. The same experience. And I found the world bathed in a wonderful radiance, with waves of beauty and joy swelling on every side. Yes, that is precisely what happens when you or I overcome our petty ego. So the beauty of things increases manifold. Things become suffused with a new light, a new appearance. Things come across to us in their reality rather than their appearance. So I found the world bathed in a wonderful radiance. So the poet, in these moments, okay, receives a vision where where he is able to penetrate the appearance of things, and he is able to kind of experience the reality behind the veil of appearance. So the quotidian and the everyday, the ordinary falls away, and things come across to him in a kind of new light. So with waves of beauty and joy swelling on every side, this radiance pierced in a moment through the folds of sadness and despondency which had accumulated over my heart and flooded it with this universal light. So the moment you experience such things, okay, what you really experience is a kind of wave of joy. Okay, so you lose your petty ego, and that leads to your losing of sadness, despondency, a sense of loneliness, a sense of alienation, and so on and so forth. So you can identify with the entire world. Okay, you experience the entire world as your friend, as your brother, as your sister, as a near and dear one. So everything becomes friendly. Not only everyone, okay, not only human beings, but in every animal, every object, every living and non-living thing, you find an extension of your own self. Okay, you find an extension of your own self. You find everything suffused with the same spirit that is operative within you. Now, this was always the reality. This will always remain the reality. But the problem is we fail to realize this reality because of the dominance of the petty ego, petty self over ourselves. So once we are able to penetrate the veil of appearance, what happens is the radiance pierced in a moment to the folds of sadness and despondency. We lose our sense of unhappiness, sadness, despondency, loneliness, and we believe that we will not only believe, we start to feel, we start to realize that, okay, everybody and everything is so very friendly. Okay, love is everywhere, joy is everywhere, happiness is everywhere. Okay, so then I will not hanker after the companionship of only human beings, because in the smallest of in even a small leaf of a small tree, a negligible tree, I will discover a friend. So my loneliness or my feeling of loneliness, okay, or friendlessness will fall away. I will receive a new birth. I will receive a new birth. I will be reborn. That is the idea. So that very day, the poem, The Awakening of the Waterfall, the original being Nirjhore Shopno Bhango. So Shopno Bhango, awakening. Okay, you come out of a dream. So the life that we live, our everyday life is like a dream. We are asleep because we do not know. Avidya. There's this shloka in the Upanishad, Tamoso ma jyotirgamayaha. Okay. Asato ma sadgamayaha. So we are all kind of covered, shrouded in darkness. Darkness of what? Darkness of ignorance. So this is this ignorance. Ignorance caused by the dominance of our petty selfhood, petty ego. So the Upanishadic, Rishi Upanishadic wise man kind of pleads to God to carry him or her, take him or transport him or her from the world of avidya to the world of vidya, from the world of tamasa to the world of jyoti, from the world of darkness, ignorance to the world of light and wisdom. So from the world of petty selfhood to the world of a larger, bigger, divine selfhood, to the world of suffering and loneliness and isolation, to the world of unity, okay, identification, beauty, love, and happiness. So this is the spirit of this essay. So that is why he says, and it came to be so that no person or thing in the world seemed to me trivial or unpleasing. So everything, everybody, not only human beings, no person or even thing, no thing in the world seemed to be trivial or unpleasing. So everything becomes noble, everything becomes extraordinary, everything becomes suffused with beauty, joy, and the presence of God. So changes, the real change came not outside, but inside. Not in the knowable, but in the knower. Not in the object, but in the subject. So, as I would stand on the balcony, so now the outcome of the experience. As I would stand on the balcony, the gait, the figure, the features of each one of the passers-by, whoever they might be, seemed to me also extraordinarily wonderful as they flowed past. Waves on the sea of the universe. Yes, waves on the sea of the universe. So each and every person, each and everything now seems to me, seems to him, seems to the poet, seems to the poet who has come out of a kind of come out of sleep, okay, come out of the ignorance of isolation, come out of the kind of negative dream or nightmare, come out of a dream, so to say. Now he is kind of looking at the world wide awake because he has come out of darkness. He has experienced light from tamasa. So he has kind of undertaken this journey from tamasa to jyoti. So that's why he now realizes that everything and everybody in this universe is not isolated. Everything and everybody is a part of this huge. Each one is a wave of the sea of the universe. From infancy, I had seen only with my eyes. Yes, that is precisely what we all do. From infancy, I had seen only with my eyes. So yes, everybody sees only with their eyes, right? Nobody sees with their nose. Nobody sees with their hands, right? So what does the poet mean here? A different kind of vision, a different kind of looking. Should we see merely with the eyes of our flesh and blood? No. We must see with our heart. We must see with our soul. We must see with our spirit. Okay? We must see with the entirety of our being. Not only see, we must listen. Not only through the ears of our flesh and blood, but also through the ears of our spirit, mind, and soul and heart. The entirety of our being. And that will be possible only when we can come out of the confines of our petty selfhood or ego. So from infancy, I had seen only with my eyes. So that is only a kind of very narrow kind of vision, very incomplete vision. The vision that we have in our everyday life when we see things with our mere eyes of flesh and blood, that gives us only say 10% of, maximum 10% of the real beauty of things around us. Because as the poet said, khol lagyo chetol. So open the doors, real doors, open your real eyes, the inner eyes. Open your inner eyes. Open the eyes of your mind, soul, and spirit. Until and unless we can do that, our eyes of flesh and blood, okay, often covered with spectacles, no matter how beautiful the spectacles are, can hardly give us a kind of peek into the real nature of the heart of the matter or heart of things. So from infancy, I had seen only with my eyes. I now began to see with the whole of my consciousness. I could not look upon the sight of two smiling youths nonchalantly going their way, the arm of one on the other's shoulder as a matter of small moment. For through it I could see the fathomless depths of the eternal spring of joy, from which numberless sprays of laughter leap up throughout the world. I had never before marked the play of limbs and lineaments which always accompanies even the least of man's actions. Now I was spellbound by their activity, which I came across on all sides, at every moment. Yet I saw them not as being apart by themselves, but as parts of that amazingly beautiful greater dance which goes on at this very moment throughout the world of men, in each of their homes, in the multifarious wants and activities. So the world becomes one. Okay, you you do not remain isolated. Okay, things outside you do not remain outside you anymore. Okay, because now you have opened your heart. Now you have opened the doors and windows of your complete being, complete consciousness, your spirit and soul. So now, I mean, nature is, or the external phenomena are not mere outsiders. They're not mere momentary guests who will come and leave sooner rather than later. Rather, they are extensions of your own selves. So you find yourself within them, they find yourselves themselves within you. So they do not remain guests anymore. They become friends, they become near and dear ones. This way, you establish a connection with the entire universe, entire world, because you have changed from within. You have changed from within. So, thus, we find connection with the entire universe. We can identify the entire universe. So, things come to us as kind of enormous unity. The entire universe, with everything that we see and do not see, everything that we experience and do not experience with our five physical senses, they become part of one enormous totality, one enormous wholeness. Ek, that is what God is. Ekameva Dityam. So, one and the only one and peerless. That is the idea. So, and I also become one of this enormous universe, enormous cosmos, that enormous cosmic consciousness, that enormous divine consciousness, that is God. So that is the source of real joy, real beauty, real happiness. And at that point of time, you realize, or I realize, that there is nothing ugly, nothing unhappy, nothing painful in this universe. Everything is suffused with beauty, joy, and happiness. So, friend loves with friend, the mother fondles her child, one cow sidles up to another and licks its body. So look, it's not only about the human being alone. It's not about not only the relationship between two friends, or not only about the relationship between the beautiful relationship between the mother and the child, but also the relationship between two cows. So friend loves with friend, the mother fondles her child, one cow sidles up to another and licks its body, and immeasurability behind this comes direct to my mind with a shock which almost savors of pain. So that great joy, okay, that great joy that everything is a part of me, even a cow, even a dog that is licking another dog, okay, is actually one part of myself licking another part of myself, one part of myself showing its affection for, extending its warm welcome to another part of my own self. So in that dog, I find me. Okay, in that smallest expression of life or smallest expression of kind of spirit, okay, I discover myself. I discover myself. So that gives me so much joy, that intense joy, that extreme joy goes to the verge of pain. So intense joy leading to pain. But this is the pain of not suffering, but joy, the pain of happiness. When we are extremely happy, tremendously happy, when we are beyond our own selves, when we are beside ourselves, we shed tears, as they call anandashru. So we cry not only when we suffer, we cry not only when we suffer from ordinary kind of unhappinesses, we also cry when we are tremendously delighted. So pain is caused both by suffering and intense happiness. So the happiness that the poet has just experienced is beyond description. Okay, that is beyond limitation. the happiness described by the Upanishadic rishis, the happiness described by the Western philosopher Plato, the happiness that anybody can experience if one thinks, stops for a moment and think and tries honestly to overcome the constraints of one's own ego. If anybody can do that, you can do that, I can do that. All we need to do is just to stop and meditate. Meditate in the sense, analyze our own selves, scrutinize our own selves, to engage in some kind of self-assessment, self-evaluation. Slowly that would lead to a kind of self-consciousness or self-awareness, which might take all of us, each and every one of us, to that intense joy, intense happiness on the verge of pain, on the verge of shedding tears. So the immeasurability behind this comes direct to my mind with a shock which almost savors of pain. When of this period I wrote, I know not how of a sudden my heart flung open its doors. Look, the point that I was cold or cold. My heart flung open its doors and let the crowd of words rush in, greeting each other. Actually, this is the translation of the Bengali original. Those of you who know Bengali, for them I'm translating it back into Bengali. হৃদয় আজি মোর কেমনে গেল খুলি জগৎ আসি সেথা করিছে কোলাকুলি. Okay, so that is the English. I know not how of a sudden, all of a sudden, my heart flung open its doors. So doors opened, not the doors of houses, doors of my heart. That is precisely what he asks everybody to do. Ore grihobashi khol dar khol. It is only then let the crowd of words rush in, greeting each other. So you let the beauty of nature, okay, the spring nature, not only the spring nature, but the nature of the entire year, rush into your heart, okay, and greet each other. The divine presence, let the divine presence in the external nature greet the divine presence in your own heart, in your own soul, in your own spirit. Okay, so let nature find a kind of seat of welcome, okay, in your own heart, and you will find a seat of welcome in the nature, in this cosmos, in this universe. So unity will be established, friendship will be established, you will experience joy and happiness. Suffering of petty kind will move away, okay, and a new suffering, an intense joyful pain will be experienced by you. So it was no poetic exaggeration. As I pointed out, this is not a kind of poetic, kind of romantic, poetic, kind of fanciful, kind of fashionable kind of thought. Certainly not. It's a deeply spiritual, deeply philosophical realization, which we all can have if we want to, if we try it. It was no poetic exaggeration. Rather, I had not the power to express all I felt. So that is his realization, and that is why the essay is titled Morning Songs, as if a new morning appeared in the poet's life. Okay, so he was shrouded in darkness, as if he was asleep till now in his life. Okay, he was dreaming a nightmare till now. He did not have light in his eyes. So night and day, darkness and light. So tamoso ma jyotirgamaya. So as if he has been transported from darkness to light, from sleep to a condition of awakening, from night to day. So morning finally appeared in his life, and this is a morning song. This essay is a kind of tribute, a kind of music, almost a musical tribute, not literally musical, but lyrical in the sense, the beautiful prose. So this is a kind of beautiful lyrical kind of tribute to the arrival of that new morning in his life, new light of realization, new light of wisdom in his life. But remember that this experience he had, these two experiences the poet had roughly at your age, at a very tender age, at a very young age, in his early youth. But then again, of course, we must remember that the special circumstances, the special experiences, the training, education, the culture, tradition of his home, the Brahmo Upanishadic cultural heritage, clearly was instrumental in this kind of realization. Okay, so we are done with this particular essay, and we will take up the next essay, that is music and feeling, tomorrow in the morning, tomorrow at 9:30. if you have any questions, you can ask me. But of course, would you